And we are back on the Zero Hour. I'm your host, Richard RJ Eskow. And joining me once again is my good friend and our Zero Hour senior correspondent, Sonali Kolhatkar. She is those things plus much more. You can find out more about her work at risingupwithsonali.com. And Sonali, you, first of all, welcome back as always.
Thank you so much, Richard. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
And same here. And thanks to you, I am now aware of the existence of a New York City woman who's known as the polka-dot dress woman. Tell us about her and why the issue she's involved in is important.
So this is just this beautiful, iconic, so far as far as I can tell, unnamed person who has become a symbol of the resistance against immigration and customs enforcement agents. You know, Trump as essentially as a centerpiece of his presidency, as we know, overfunded, ICE, put into his big, beautiful bill, and massive surge of funding, and deployed what is essentially his own private militia, it feels like, to cities that he openly has said are Democratic strongholds, which also happen to all be cities that are very racially diverse, where immigrants are enmeshed into and embedded into social and economic fabrics. All of the things that make great cities great, such as New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, etc. And this particular woman came to light a few weeks ago in New York City. She seemed, at least she was dressed. I really don't know anything about her other than these photographs and videos that exist, but she just stood out as this fearless woman who seemed to have been maybe coming home from work because she was dressed in work clothing, wearing a polka dot navy blue dress with a navy blue blazer, carrying a kind of a briefcase style purse or backpack, not backpack, just a purse actually, like a professional. She was dressed professionally, with brown shoes. And I don't even know her ethnicity. She might be Latina. She might be just a tanned white person. I really don't know. But she met the military tanker coming at her on the street in an image that is reminiscent of like Tiananmen Square. She
Absolutely.
met,
Yeah. Yeah.
she met this tanker that could have mowed her down, stood in the middle of the street, flipping them off with both hands, flipping off the people with both hands. Later, she's captured in photos and videos, physically tackling or kind of defending herself and others. And she's in this throng of people against ICE agents. She knows to put her front foot forward and lean in. And she is absolutely fierce. She is, I can't really tell what she's saying, but you can just only picture the curse words coming out of her mouth since she's very free with her middle fingers. And she is just that fearlessness, that rage was captured in these pictures, and she went viral. People have just been so excited seeing this beautiful display of anger, and it's eloquent, and you don't even need words. And so this led me down a path of looking at places where people have been successful in beating back ICE, because fascism relies on a bully culture, which means that it is all bark. And if you push back, it turns out that their bite is not as strong as you might think it is. And so I wrote a story using her iconic stances to actually show how successful resistance has been, community-based resistance has been against ICE, far more successful than I think most of us realize, far more successful than I think Trump imagined. And he sees it. His people see it, and they don't want to talk about it because there would be a win for us and a loss for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's also just uplifting to see somebody say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. There's a part of it, I worry about people because I remember Kent State, for example, when people, a lot of students thought, well, they could resist without risk. And, it would not be out of Trump's wheelhouse to escalate into extreme and even lethal violence. But uh, these people with their courage and the polka dot dress woman struck me as just really pissed at a badass and just not taking it. And uh, so the courage also serves a useful purpose, as do these other forms of neighborhood resistance you write about, which is that people are not liking what they see. I mean, last time we talked about this, I think I said, whatever public opinion is, resisting fascism is good for its own sake, but public opinion is also moving against Trump on this issue. Most people think that ICE is using too much force. Most people think they should not be allowed to wear masks. And I think that this kind of resistance inspires more people to do it and brings people around. In that sense, it's also not unlike Tiananmen Square, right? I mean, the whole world stood with them.
The power of the symbol is so important and often underestimated, but the forces of fascism understand the power of the symbol, and so therefore they go and try to crush people who might emerge as so-called leaders. And this woman may have had no plans to stand up to ICE the day she did, or maybe she absolutely planned on it, heard about it, came early from work, or maybe she even decided to dress up in a way that she thought would attract attention as a community organizer. We don't know, but the symbolism is really powerful.
Well, so I was going to say, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was going to first say, well, she didn't dress for it because she's kind of formally dressed. But then I was remembering that when Norman Mailer, the quite complex public figure and, of course, great novelist or a famous novelist, wrote his book about the March on the Pentagon, Armies of the Night, he said he always wears a three-piece suit to a demonstration. Of course, he was older than most of the demonstrators. He was middle-aged, and he thought that men of a certain age should dress formally to be to resist the cops and get beaten up and arrested. And there were pictures of little round Norman in his three-piece suit getting, hauled away.
I mean, look at civil rights leaders. They wore suits and ties often leading marches. And then the images of them getting arrested were much starker than, somebody, I don't know, wearing sneakers and shorts or whatever.
Right. So I guess we may never know who she is. It's also something of an accomplishment in this day and age for anybody to go viral and then not be found.
Right. Yeah. And hopefully no one puts in too much effort, because I think that the value of her symbolism is worth a lot more than knowing who she is. And also let's leave her alone, because going viral, it brings with it its own slew of costs, and it can be a high cost for someone who maybe never planned on it.
I mean, somebody might swat her house. ICE might show up and, she, as you say, she looks like she might be Latina, best to,
she might be Italian American. She might be Jewish.
Right. But anonymity has its own power too.
Exactly. And so what I wanted to do was also use that as a jumping off point to discuss how ICE is being met with community activists all over the country. In Ventura County, right here in Southern California, there is an incredibly well-organized rapid response network that may be the most organized in the nation. And I say this because it is a small, sparsely populated community. It's close, between sort of South and Central California, and 2 hours north of Los Angeles, Ventura County. And there is a city called Oxnard. I've been there. It's, it's a sleepy town. And there's a lot of Latino people living there. And there is a network called VC Defensa that arose, VC standing for Ventura County. They have 700 trained organizers by the count of Leonardo Martinez, one of the activists I interviewed, 700 trained organizers for a small city is pretty remarkable. And the reason I found out about Leonardo Martinez, who is one of these other people that I profile in the story that I wrote called Rage Against the Ice Machine that people can find online, the reason he kind of has gone viral is because he was engaged in regular community defense work, which is trailing ICE agents. And people are doing this all over. They find out, they figure out who are the ICE agents by the cars they drive, by the, by what they wear. And then they know that they show up early in the morning and they follow them at a safe distance and they observe them. They photograph them, they document them. Sometimes they pull out bullhorns and yell at them and tell them to go home. All these non-violent means that are part of their constitutional right, their First Amendment rights to observe, document, speak out, protect themselves. And so he was going about doing this one day. And out of the blue, I guess the ICE agents had had enough and they got annoyed, turned around, tailed him, followed him, and then rammed into him, violently rammed into him with their car. And it's all been caught on camera on his own dash cam because he was prepared and on street level camera. And then he was terrified. And of course, and then he was in an abandoned street. He went to a slightly more busy area. He anticipated doing this. He knew that if he got out then and there, that they would likely beat him up and there would be nobody to see, or he worried about that. So he went to a more crowded area. They arrested him. They claimed that he hit them. Luckily, video shows otherwise. They took him to Metropolitan Downtown Detention Center in downtown LA. And of course, he's a citizen and they're ICE agents. And they let him go right away because right away his allies started posting video all online and he was released. And they have been utterly embarrassed all over this country as well. And I'm not even covering, the story I wrote doesn't even cover the legal victories because there's an army of lawyers that are challenging ICE that are winning. This is just community defense, grassroots defense, and together the community, the grassroots, and the legal is proving to be a wonderful resistance. Portland, the inflatable animal costumed people, protesters in front of the ICE detention centers are still going strong. In San Francisco, it was announced that there would be a big escalation, but then Trump backed off. Chicago people are still defending. So it is actually quite powerful. That's not to say ICE isn't still hauling people off and disappearing them, but they haven't been able to be as successful as they wanted to be.
And what I love about this story, Sonali, is that in creating these organizations, hopefully at some point the ICE insanity will die down. I mean, if it descends to open occupation of our cities, we'll need those networks then. But if things move on, those structures, those social structures that are being created, those relationships, those networks, like the one you describe in Oxnard, they can be built upon for future causes. I mean, they can live there for, I was thinking as you were talking about the radical saying from a long time ago, una puebla unido jamás será vencida, people united can never be defeated. I love the idea of people self-organizing into resilient kind of distributed networks that can fight back. And I'm wondering what some of the rest of us can do to kind of amplify this and maybe emulate it or build upon it or whatever.
Yeah, Leonardo Martinez was saying that he thought it was surprising how, he wanted to be able to his organization be one of many, many such organizations. And he was surprised that at 700 volunteers, theirs was one of the biggest in the country that he knew of. I'm guessing Chicago rivals that and possibly LA. But given the size of Ventura County, to have a single organization having 700 volunteers that are trained to do this is pretty remarkable. And I think that, he hopes that it's emulated elsewhere. They have such fantastic tactics. Like, for example, one thing that Chicago has popularized is the use of the whistle. a non-violent weapon in the fight against ICE. I don't know where it started exactly, but Chicago has popularized it. And what people are doing in their arsenal of training volunteers to document ICE activity is they're distributing these, tiny plastic cheap whistles you can get anywhere, and people are keeping them. And when they observe ICE, just drawing attention loudly through the use of a whistle to let ICE know they're being watched and to
Right.
alert the community around them that there's ICE activity has been remarkably successful. This is something that other communities could take on. A benign little tool like a whistle is just, more powerful, I think, than guns, and certainly less violent.
Certainly less violent and cheaper. Um, I noticed, by the way, that some of there have been a couple software tools put together, Ice Alert and others, where people can
Yes.
warn their neighbors. But I noticed that the one was taken out of the Apple store and the
Yeah.
website was taken down too.
Yeah, because we have these corporate gatekeepers, right?
Yeah.
And there is always going to be a limit on our ability to digitally organize on platforms controlled by billionaires. And therefore, that diversity of actions, as some people call them, is so important. Diversity of tactics, rather, that some people call it, so important to have, especially in person. Any kind of organizing that does not rely on a platform or a gatekeeping by a corporation that's owned and controlled by billionaires is going to have longevity. And we also have to understand that there are going to be times when we have internet outages that people can't rely on organizing. What do we do then, right? So
Right. In
and that takes
fact,
hyper local organizing.
they can be deliberate, as in Kashmir, where they took the internet down for
Yes.
months to suppress popular resistance. So,
We've seen that
all the,
in many areas, many parts of Myanmar, they've done that in the past.
yeah, yeah, and I've always felt that solidarity comes from community, and community is really only built
Yeah.
in real life communication, not with tweets or
I mean, you can have those, right? I think it's good because you can amplify the work so far beyond where you're at, and I think it's good to have them as part of the arsenal, but not rely solely on them. That's, I think, key. So use them when available, but organize knowing that could be taken away. So what's the fallback? All right. Like, I remember such an important, powerful community that was built on Twitter when it was Twitter, called Black Twitter, which was this
right,
incredible sociological phenomenon of a bullhorn that was a collective clapback at corporate media coverage of police killings. And now all it took was a billionaire saying, no, I'm going to destroy this thing and make it my personal toy. And Black Twitter is no more. They've tried to rebuild it in different
yeah.
platforms. Those
Black
two could be taken away.
Black Twitter was great. There's a movie about it. I haven't seen it yet, but I remember I was working for Bernie when they came up with the Bernie so black
I remember
meme.
that.
Oh, it was hilarious. I mean, some of them were absolutely well. Okay, I guess in conclusion, Sonali, we know where this is going? Is it growing? I mean,
So I think we have to be really cognizant of the fact that the ICE militia is still ramping up. The worst may be yet to come. And
mhm,
I want us to celebrate the resistance, but I also think it's so important for us to be extremely realistic about the fact that it may still be that we ain't seen nothing yet from
right,
ICE. It may still be that Trump is ramping up because the money is there. The budget for ICE, it's the biggest budget of any domestic military force of any country in the world, and even in the history of the US, right? It's something like 161 billion. I can't remember the exact number. It's enormous, and they haven't ramped up to that yet. They're having trouble recruiting people, which is not surprising. It's a thankless job and it's horrendous. And you have to be a special kind of sadist to want a job like that. But they're offering like $50,000 bonuses at a time of great economic
right.
insecurity. So I think we're going to see an escalation on the ground. I'm thinking of Los Angeles 2028 when the Olympics are here,
Oh, yeah.
year when the World Series is here, World Cup is being played. I'm thinking of places like Chicago, these very diverse cities that Trump still will want to make an example of. And I think we cannot rest. In fact, this is the moment to grow those networks instead of waiting till the army is at the door, right? So I think I'm hoping that this is the moment that we see these bases that people built very quickly, very rapidly to meet the moment, to, now that they have a little breathing room, depending on where you live, to expand it and bring people into the fold, and to really become organized. Because it's one thing to march in the No Kings rallies, it's another thing to have day-to-day organizing.
Absolutely. And, you're doing your part by letting people know about it. And that's greatly appreciated. So, as always, and the article, by the way, you can find it at risingupwithsonali.com under the headline Rage Against the Ice Machine. Sonali Kolhatkar, as always, thanks for that great work. And as always, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you so much, Richard. Always a pleasure to be with you.
We depend on your support here at the Zero Hour, so please give whatever you can at any of the links you see on your screen. Thanks so much.